Hi, everyone. It's David Ault, and I'm so happy and thrilled to have you join me for another edition of The Gathering. Several years ago, I read a wonderful book. It was by an author named Jedediah Jenkins. What a great name. Jedediah Jenkins, and it's called To Shake the Sleeping Self. He was 33, and he had made an agreement with himself that at the age of 33, that if certain things hadn't happened in his professional career, that he was going to do something to shake his world, create a disruption in his world, and he was going to do that deliberately. He didn't know what it would look like, but he was open and available to that. Well, 33 came and he found himself, I believe, if I remember correctly, because it's been a few years, he worked in some kind of publishing or advertising agency. And he could see that agreement was necessary. And so he decided that he was going to bicycle from Oregon to Patagonia. I remember reading a review of this book thinking I didn't even know you could do that. But nonetheless, it was a fantastic book. He sort of reminded me of me a little bit. Had an adventuresome spirit and was game and open to be teachable and to let that teaching happen through personal experience. And so he quit his job and off he was going to go on this adventure. And so I was captivated by the book. I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to know more about Jedediah Jenkins. And so after I finished the book, I remember Googling him and finding an abundant amount of podcasts. And I would listen to them and continue to really resonate with who he was as a person. And on one particular podcast, he talked about something that I was not aware of, and it was called proportional theory. Proportional theory is an examination of our relationship with time. And he said the reason why this became a thing for him was that he was gone for 16 months. I want you to think about that. 16 months. And he said it was the longest 16 months of his life. And the reason why was that every day was unknown. Every day there was sort of a surrender to the environment. There wasn't a way to have a guarantee about where he would be sleeping or accommodations or weather or circumstances. Whether it be his physical circumstance or the stability of the bicycle, and he was traveling with another person. And so there were so many different variables that made every day a big, huge mystery, almost like a fresh canvas every morning. And so that unpredictability made those 16 months the longest 16 months of his life. And proportional theory says that when there is a sort of new stimuli like that, time seems to elongate. And we experience that as children as well. And so let me go back. So he said he came back, the trip was finished, and he started to reconnect with friends. And an unusual response was happening because his friends were like going, "You're back already?" Their 16 months and his 16 months were at complete ends, opposite ends of the spectrum. His, as we talked about, was this new stimuli every single day. Their 16 months had been pretty much the same thing, the set patterning of the way in which they were doing life. And so they would make this response like, "You're back already?" And it really got him to thinking, and that's how he stumbled upon proportional theory. So proportional theory, when you think about us as kids, do you remember when we just couldn't wait for Christmas to come? And we it seemed like it was interminable before Christmas would come, or a parent or someone would say, this summer we're going to take you to Disneyland. And it seemed like an eternity for summer to come. And part of proportional theory means that when we were 5, 6, 7 years old, the proportion of time that we had spent on the planet, it was very small. And so events like that, based upon our proportion of being here in human form, is very tiny compared to us as adults when we've had a lot of years of leverage and time. And so for us, we say things like, where did the time go? I can't believe that it's already July. I mean, it feels like New Year's just happened. And so as we age, time seems to go fast. And when we're young and experiencing lots of new stimuli, things that we've never experienced before as children, there are so many firsts, right? First day of school, first romance, first experience of some type of creativity or endeavor, first time to go to Disneyland. All of those things are first. And so our proportion of experience to this new stimuli is so wide open. And as we age, that proportion seems to shrink because we become creatures of habit. So proportional theory then tells us that as we age, time seems to fly by. And when we are young, time seems to feel like an eternity. I was fascinated by that because his point was that just because we age does not mean that we have to be exempt from new stimuli. So, for example, this bicycle trip to Patagonia and the wild adventures and the personal discoveries and the tapping into a whole new reservoir of self-reliance was something that was very much equivalent to establishing new stimuli every single day. And so it got me to thinking about all of us and myself and the way in which I could find how that sedentary patterning of adulting or adulthood uh, could very much be in alignment with this idea that time seems to be racing by. And I didn't sleep well last night, and I've got a little bit of mixture of fatigue and excitement because in 72 hours I am leaving for Europe to return and walk the Camino. I mentioned that in our last episode. The Camino de Santiago, or the Way of St. James, one of our planet's most ancient pilgrimages. I did the traditional route 13 years ago, and I am doing the Portuguese route. And so there's been lots of preparation. There has been lots of practice and getting up early and trying to get as many miles in to get conditioned and prepared for what will take place over the next month. And so it's new. It's a mystery. It's brand new stimuli. And I can feel a mixture of that excitement and that mystery and that unknown and that nervousness. I can also feel the responsibility of this time I'm attaching a responsibility to it. I'm attaching the responsibility of raising money for my foundation, Kaleidoscope Child Foundation. I'm attaching a need to it and a whole different level of communication. The first time that I did it was right at the brink before cell phones were just almost inseparable from our hand. I had a cell phone. I remember I wrapped it in bubble wrap, but I put it at the bottom of my backpack and I didn't touch it for a month. I only had it there because I knew that I was going to have to make a call to make logistics for someone to pick me up from an airport. But other than that, there was no need for it because I wasn't using it as a camera. I had a separate little Instamatic thing that I was using for that. And so this time, my phone is going to be prevalent. This time, I won't be as separated from the world. This time, the phone is my camera. And I'm going to be vlogging or making little short daily videos to bring people into the experience, but also to bring an expanded awareness to Kaleidoscope Child Foundation and all of the work that we are doing and the need that is there for financial support. So even though I've done it before, so I have a little bit of awareness of what to expect, it's a whole different ball game and a whole different set of disruption. Trying to prepare everything, as you know, you've gone on trips, and so there's so much things that you're trying to do just to get out of the house. Now I read all of the stuff about where airlines are and the delays and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that was this sort of avalanche of thought last night while I was trying to sleep, and I just couldn't. So I got up and I sat and I breathed and I thought about the challenges of having a nonprofit. I thought about the weariness and the ongoing excavation of trying to find a way to elevate funding. I thought about age. I thought about, can you really do this, David? And so there was a lot of noise. And then I was remembering proportional theory. And I thought, there's no winning, there's no losing. It's just a matter of walking into and becoming available to a disruption. And I believe that that's the message that I want to impart to you for this particular version of the gathering is disruption, conscientious disruption, recognizing and knowing that stimuli or the newness of stimuli, everything new, actually does rest in the activity of choice. And you might say, well, I don't have a choice, David, to walk the Camino. And I would say, well, you're missing the point, because I'm not saying that you have to do it as a carbon copy of what I'm doing. But I'm saying that there are many things that we can do to incorporate brand new stimuli in our life so that time doesn't necessarily seem to fly by per se, but that we are open and available to being teachable. And now I want to relate that just to the complete composite of belief. I recognize that I think that I'm pretty fluid with regards to belief systems and being teachable and even having, dare I say, worldview views collapse. And I can say that I have positioned my life to be able to be open and available to that. I have pronounced that. I have affirmed that I'm open and available. As the teaching that I got my doctorate in says, to be open at the top simply means to have beginner's mind, to constantly be available to having my belief system challenged, having my comfortability challenged, having my conformity challenged, having my biases be raised up in order that I might be able to see them and to create new stimuli. And so if we don't do that, if we become so conditioned and isolated and inert in our world, then time does seem to race by. And before you know it, this incarnation is over. The paradox is that whether we do that or not doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, meaning that by doing it, then we become right or we earn something. It's just a matter of when we realize that why we are here, why you are here, is sort of compatible with this idea of pick your adventure. Pick your adventure means that we're all designed and will win. We've already won. We will all return to what is known as the one. I say known as the one because it is sort of the paradox of the unknowable, that which is infinite, that which we may want to call God or love or source or the infinitude of intelligence. We will return to that because we are that. What we do have a choice about, so I will say that's predetermined. What we do have a choice about is the adventure within that journey. So the journey within the journey. And I find that part of what whispers or beckons or calls us is this thing that's similar to proportional theory. It's saying that, are you willing in your pick your adventure to have that adventure be filled with new stimuli, to be teachable, to find yourself open and available for new experiences, for allowing yourself to continue to explore and to learn. It is in that this thing that we call time then can be relished, and that you and I will say we maximize this incarnation. And so as much as I was unable to sleep, concerned, worried, finding myself being pulled into situational thoughts about logistics that I really don't have any control over. But I had to think them, I had to turn to them, I had to notice that they were there rather than trying to numb them out. And so that meant getting up and just sitting and observing the noise. I had to sit and observe the noise about just even my own personal income and how am I going to do this, observing the noise of what happened. I mean, I asked myself, what happens, David, if you don't reach your goal? And I was like, well, if you don't reach your goal, you don't reach your goal. I found myself just sort of hyper focused on what isn't getting done and what deadlines are not being met. All the stuff that you and I go through in our humanness. And so by getting up and just witnessing those thoughts, about an hour and a half went by. And finally, I could feel the transition within my mind of, okay, I noticed that storm and there's nothing that I can control. So have I allowed that storm to run its course? And then I just went to bed and went to sleep. And I realized that part of proportional theory is engaged in this witnessing of thought, because part of what numbs us out is the fear of such thought. And so when our mind is busy like that, when we are overwhelmed, there can be an established routine whereby we just turn on the television. When we become afraid and uncomfortable with the storms of thought, then we can become quite manic in our management skills of how we're going to press through and we're going to overcome the obstacles of what these thoughts are telling us must be overcome. The disaster that looms if we don't. And so that then becomes a form of numbing out through control, false control. Because the reality is that most of the manicness behind, I'm going to, do this stuff. I'm going to make these people see this. I'm going to do this thing. It's a form of numbing out. Numbing out meaning that we are missing, or we are bypassing the ability to sit still and to witness all of that manic control in order to experience what is beyond that. To witness all of the jumbled thoughts and the fears and the, oh my God, what will happen if I can't do this? Just the slightest little ache from all of the walking that I've been doing. And I go, oh my God, my body is this and that. and then getting caught up in the loop of aging. And you see, it's incessant, right? And so the idea of proportional theory is if I can create new stimuli in my relationship to all of those thoughts, what I can begin to see then is that and experience is what is beyond those thoughts. Because if I don't do that, I will suffocate. I will suffocate in the human oppression. I will suffocate in the day to day overwhelm. And and time will slip by, and before you know it, the goal of wanting to write the book, or the goal of wanting to travel, or the goal of wanting to create a healthier lifestyle, or the goal of this or that or the other, time will have sped by because the overwhelm of all of that will have consumed us, and we will have numbed out. We will have postponed. We will have procrastinated. So, wherever you are in your life, I want you to take age off of the table. I want you to look at how you might be saying, well, I'm this, so it's too late. And I want you to consider for a moment that there's no truth to that. All that is a mass conscious seductive belief that we've sort of caved to, that we have been domesticated to believe that we can't. And I want you to consider that. I want you to look at what are your numbing devices. So for some people, numbing out is just television. For some people, numbing out is control, massive control. Yeah, that is a form of numbing out because we're terrified of what would happen if we took our bloody knuckled grip off of the situation. And I observe that every single day. I observe that with the people, the clients and the people that I converse with, and I just simply witness. I witness how massive their suffering is, and the suffering is a product of their control. And the letters and the correspondence that I have gotten throughout the month of June, I was the author of a magazine called Guide for Spiritual Living, Science of Mind. And so this is a monthly magazine through the Science of Mind Foundation, which is where I studied and was a minister for many years. And I'm really honored when I'm asked to do the daily guides, which is a daily message throughout the month. It's a big undertaking. It is a disruption. It is something, it's a new stimuli because now I have this commitment and this deadline. And so time, that's another relational thing with proportional theory. But I get a lot of responses whenever I am published in that way. And what's interesting about the responses is the amount of suffering. The amount of suffering that people are going through, and how much of that suffering has its roots in control. And so, as I look at the Camino, as I think about the reflection of Jedediah Jenkins in the bicycle, I realize that what that immersive experience of stimuli is relinquishing control. That I am at the mercy of being in the now. And I wonder what that might be for you. I'm not saying that you have to do some type of physical pilgrimage, but what thing could you engage in that would require you to let go of control? Let go of control around what people think of you. Let go of control around the conformity of thought and allow some worldviews to crumble. And so it's great fodder for conversation. I find that I'm having to do that every single day. Every single day is an opportunity to let go of control, which creates a whole new stimuli. And so I want you to think about your own relationship to proportional theory. and how you might be experiencing time flying by and go, what disruption can you welcome in? What do you want? Ask yourself, what do I want? Not what do I want materialistically, but what do I want in terms of my feeling state? If my feeling state is I want freedom, and I'm going to tell you that's usually the bottom, peeling away the onion core of what we're looking for is this sense of freedom. Freedom is not going to be found then in control. Freedom, ironically, paradoxically, is going to be found in relinquishing control. I know that sounds weird, doesn't it? But true freedom is in relinquishing control of my need to control. And the only way that I'm going to do that is by exploring avenues of trust and allowing myself to be in situations that are new, that pique the stimulus, that allow me to have sort of that first day on the job in a new city feeling where I may not know anything. So what is that for you? Does that feel repellent to you? And if it does, I'm not saying that you have to do anything about it, but you might want to look at the things that feel repellent and to notice that behind that is a fear. And what is that fear about? And when I ask you, what do you want? And if what you want is a relationship with freedom, then proportional theory might be the very thing to explore. Blessings. Thank you.